so many of us are living in cycles and patterns that are just, we feel like they're out of our control almost to some extent, or we feel like that's just the way we are. And we don't realize we can actually unlearn these systemic things that have either been passed down from your family or from society. You can unlearn all of that and you can create a new narrative that works for you, like your own story. You know, like I always say that you're the lead character of your own story. So why have you been sitting back as like the side character? Like, you need to be the main role now.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the best podcast out there, the Coach Drive podcast. Today we are having over Sherisse. Hello Sherisse, how are you? I am so happy to have you with us.
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And I am so excited to have you here with us and to have you share your energy with us and your wisdom you hold within, and you cannot wait to let it go. For those that don't know Sherisse, she is a professional dancer. Let me tell you, she is absolutely awesome, and an empowerment coach that shares the tools she has learned along her journey to self-love in the hopes that it helps everyone and everyone she connects with. Sherisse, would you like to tell us more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really funny, actually. Obviously, I started my career as a professional dancer, and I feel like that was really the external and almost like a form of gaining validation, I think, in a way. Like, dance was always a real expressionate thing for me. I got to release a lot of, I'd say, pain and, like, you know, emotions that were built up in my body from my like adverse childhood. So dance was something I really found like home in, you know, and I found a space to be myself. And that was really what drove me the whole way through my career. And I've had so many obstacles and setbacks within that. Now it's kind of like, I feel like with a lot of people, the pandemic really made us turn inwards and like question, you know, what are we doing? Like, who are we basically? And I really did a deep dive into my soul in that time. Went back to university, did my master's degree, which again was another completely different scenario to what I've been in. I just like to throw myself into really difficult things if you didn't know. So I just, really just started unpacking on a really deep level. Like, I feel like I got to 23 and I'd started doing surface level unpacking. So I'd got into, you know, the law of attraction and like the universe and how we're all connected and like karma and things like that. I was doing all this surface work, not realizing that I've had these like toxic traits that have like sabotage my life basically. So in the pandemic I did all of that deep dive stuff and just really found some tools that worked for me and led me back to like this truly authentic version of who I am, like the real core of why I ever did what I did and like why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I just feel like so many of us are living in cycles and patterns that are just, we feel like they're out of our control almost to some extent, or we feel like that's just the way we are. And we don't realize we can actually unlearn these like systemic things that have either been passed down from your family or from society. You can unlearn all of that and you can create a new narrative that works for you, like your own story. You know, like I always say that you're the lead character of your own story. So why have you been sitting back as like the side character? Like, you need to be the main role now. So it's all about that for me. And the real core of everything, I feel like, for me is when I found that real true love for myself, that's where authentic confidence really bloomed. And now it's not in a place of seeking validation, or it's not leading from ego. It's just a place of knowing and trusting and just feeling happy in who I am. And it's just a really beautiful space to be in. And I live so much of my life just, not there. So I feel like that's why it's so important for me to share this, because it's needed and necessary. And I think especially on a platform where, you know, like coaches, for example, you know, it's a constant give. We're giving all the time to like clients, to people that you see. And it's, if your cup's not full, you're just pouring from an empty cup. So it's like, for me, this is really important to share my tools, because hopefully then you can fill your cup up every time and lead from a full cup. And that's where you get the real grace and beauty and flow in everything that you do basically. So that's why, I feel like it's important for me to be here today.
Exactly. And I love that so much. And I could almost feel everything that you were saying, because when you have your cup filled, there is so much more to give. But if your cup is empty, then it's much harder, because you're consuming yourself to a level that will actually harm you. if you're listening to this, you're probably trying to build and scale your online business. Am I right? Then we have just the thing for you, and it's free.
We're building Pensite to enable people like you to set up your online store and monetize your knowledge via courses, one-to-one sessions, group coaching, digital products, Q&As, and bundles. It's purpose-built for you with bonus features such as video recordings, private notes for each client, Zapier integration, calendar sync, analytics, and much, much more to handle your scheduling automatically, accept payments, and help you scale your business.
Check it out at pensight.com. So I know one of your favorite things that you tell people and that you share is you are the only you, and that is your superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I wanted to ask you, what does that mean for you?
Well, I feel like for me personally, my whole life I've never fit into a box or a category. You know, like for example, in the dance industry, they'd say all the blondes, you go first group, all the brunettes second group, and then I'd be like, well, where do I fit in that then? Like which one's mine? And then even with like academia and school and stuff, like I was never the most intelligent and I was never like the least intelligent. So I was always kind of like buffering between the two. But, you know, schooling for me personally, I feel like it's a bit like judging a goldfish's ability to climb a tree. We're all very different. But yeah, I just feel like I've never fit into a mold, and I spent my whole life trying to change myself, you know, like even down to as a performer, like straightening my hair a lot for jobs to look more European for the job spec, when actually no one asked me to do that, but it was just what society and what I was seeing all the time, and what I felt beauty was, you know, to be, you know, more white basically, which is, yeah, it's upsetting, and unfortunately it's just probably the area I grew up in the industry at the time. But yeah, I've never fit into anything, and I spent so much of my time trying to mold myself into something that I wasn't. And then I got to that point where I just dropped all of that, and I was like, you know what, maybe I've spent all this time trying to fit in when I was just born to stand out. And I feel like so many of us have that, you know, like even if you are, you know, you look the same as someone else or whatever, like individually, we all have so many unique and beautiful qualities inside of us that make us special. And I feel like we have to sing about that. You know, like when you do your 9 to 5 every single day, you're like, if you're all in a call center, you're like made to feel like you're all exactly the same when you're not. And you know, if you love working in a call center, that I'm here for it. I'm like, good for you. I love that you love what you do. But there's so many people, like I said, following this mundane pattern, not realizing that love for baking or that love for interior design is what's your superpower and your special thing that you have. And we all have something so incredible to share. And I actually feel like, you know, that's a bit like my life. Like this now, what I'm doing with the empowerment mentoring is just my life story of constant like struggle and pain. I've now alchemized into something that I can share that's now beautiful. And like I always say, it's like liquid gold, because I feel like there's so much flow in what I'm doing now, and it's just, yeah, the path of least resistance. And I had to go through all that resistance to get me to where I am now. But basically, again, in so many words, it's just embracing everything you are, like flaws and all, and knowing that is what makes you so special. Because, you know, I could have said like 10 years ago that my flaws were the fact that my skin color held me back or my body shape, and now it's like one of my greatest assets to be able to share this story to help other people, and the representation for other young brown girls as well, seeing me doing this type of thing and being a dancer and doing it and living a really beautiful, fulfilled life. It's just nice to just love yourself, bottom line.
And it's inspiring, as you were saying, you know, the way you talk about your journey, the way you talk about yourself and your life right now, it's inspiring because it gives all the others hope that that's possible, because we can feel your energy. We can feel the way you talk about this. And that's something I feel deep down we all want, and we're striving to achieve to this point and this level. And I think, you know, when you get yourself into this great state, that's when you can help others get there. And, you know, first you make the world better for yourself, and then you can make the world better for others.
Absolutely.
And even just by being. But I know us as coaches, we take it a step forward and we actually try to directly help people. I wanted to ask you, Sherisse, What's the role of self-love on the coaching journey?
It comes back to that empty cup scenario. And I think, and also a really, really important thing is boundaries. Because I feel like this constant giving and this constant, like if you have a client that needs your attention and they message you in the middle of the night or whatever, and you want to be and support them, it's having those clear boundaries of knowing that, there's a certain extent that you'll help someone, but if it's a detriment to you and you're going to feel resentful for helping at that time, then you need to just say, I'm really sorry, I'll get back to you 9 a.m. tomorrow, or even having like an out of office that comes up, or just being clear, for example, if you can't give of a weekend or whatever, there's a time that you can't help. It's just making that very clear from the get-go, like as Friday's approaching, just sending a little email out to whoever you're coaching, just letting them know that this weekend I'm off the record, guys, but if you do need anything, please do drop me a message. I'll get back to you on Monday. Like clear boundaries is so important, especially for coaches, because like I said, constantly giving. If your cup's not full, if you're in a bad mood, you're just going to feel resentful. And then if you do show up for these people when you're not feeling 100%, you're just going to end up probably giving not great advice, maybe not showing up fully. And I think that is a detriment, because then your client themselves might walk away thinking, oh, like, especially if you're projecting out your anxiety or your anger onto them, that just creates another cycle of like bad, really toxic traits, really, to be honest. And I think that's why, doing a deep dive and being self-aware, like for me personally, journaling's been a massive part of my life, because I've managed to like unpack so much of myself. And I think as a coach, to be able to reflect, because I'm sure we like for me, it is a core part of what I teach, but for all coaches to go back and reflect on your journey, with every client or every so often, because we get our clients to do the same for us. So why are we not doing that part ourselves as well? Like, what could you do better? What could you do differently? And it's asking yourself that constantly. Like, I get told all the time, I love how self-aware you are. And I think, why do we not promote that? Why is that not taught in schools, like to be this self-aware? And it's because for me, it seems like a bit of a magic trick. Like when I talk about like myself and like the things that I've had to go like unpack, like for example, toxic masculine, I'm hyper independent, these things that I probably never would have known before unless I started doing the journaling and stuff, that now I can see it creeping in when I go to do it. Or if someone I'm coaching goes to do it, I'm like, I can identify that because I've done it. So there's power in knowing yourself, being self-aware, having strong boundaries, and also loving yourself enough to know that you do come first. So regardless of your client, regardless if they're paying you, if you're not putting yourself first and making yourself a priority, then you aren't going to be able to give as much as you can and what's possible, and keep recharging and refilling yourself, to be the best version of yourself, so then you can in turn help them be the best version of themselves.
I love that. And I love that you brought in the concept of boundaries, because, many times if you think about love and you think about boundaries, it doesn't always seem like they go hand in hand, but it's so true. Setting boundaries is what will allow you to be even better, give even more, and perform at your best. Now, what is something that has helped you a lot in this journey of being a mentor, an empowerment mentor, when it comes to the communication with your clients?
Like what's been helped me deliver to the best that I can? Or
I think so, in the way that you deliver, or just the communication that you have in your clients. What is something that has really made a difference in that?
I think, it does come back down to that self-knowing, because I know myself so transparently and so clearly, and I've just made peace with all of my demons. And this is another thing that I talk about a lot, shadow work. So this is how we unpack the side of ourselves that we're not too happy about. So for example, there would have been a time in my life where I'd been so hyper masculine that I would have come across as arrogant. So, doing this shadow work, unpacking and knowing myself fully has enabled me made me able to be able to give 100% and be really clear, because I feel like, who was it that says it? I think Stephen Bartlett said it recently. It was like, you can read all the books in the world, but if you can't read yourself, then you'll never be able to truly learn and grow. And I think that is really what the important thing is for me, because I want to continue to grow always. I don't want to ever be stagnant. And I think that's what I want for my clients. So if I can be a living example of what I'm trying to teach, then that's really the beauty of it. You know, I'm sure we've all had teachers in the past that have been, you do this, you do that, or do as I say, not as I do, or something like that. And I'm like, I don't like that. Like, I am the embodiment of everything that I stand for. And I hope to always be that. And that's really important to me. So I think that really is the concept. And, you know, like when I'm talking about self-love, like my definition of self-love literally is self-respect and self-acceptance. And I think when that is the key to everything you do, it is a clear pathway, and it just gives other people the permission to do and feel the same. And I think that's really where I'm at with it, because I'm always this person. So whether I'm teaching, you know, like a room full of adults or a room full of children, or, you know, giving a talk or on a one-to-one basis, I will always be this person. This is me at home with my friends, with my family. I'm always this. And I think that is a real lovely space to be in, because that's where the self-acceptance is. There's no like, I don't switch into like mentor mode, switch into teacher mode. I've just come back from Mykonos on a dance job, and even there, one of the girls was having a little bit of a hard time, and she just asked me for a bit of advice, and I was able to just show up for her, because it's not like I have to get into a zone. It's everything I am. And I think if you feel that you're not in that space and you have to act a certain way rather than being yourself, then maybe that's a sign that you need to do a little bit of work, you know, like you need to do a little bit of a deep dive and unpack that, because it's a hard job, like mentoring and showing up if you're not coming from an authentic place, because then you're having to be someone you're not. And that is, yeah, I don't think anyone should ever pretend to be anything than what they are, because like I said, you are the only you there is, and that is your superpower.
I love that. And that made me think about a super interesting thing, because you say that's you, right? Now, has it ever happened to you that you maybe carry this side of you in scenarios where maybe people are questioning, why are you acting like a coach to them, for example, with family or friends? And if so, are you at the stage where you think this is a bad thing, or you just are embracing it at this point, or what are you doing about this?
I'll have a little bit of gold dust for you on that. So I actually, before I actually decided to be a mentor, I felt like naturally I was someone that gave a lot of advice. I feel like because I've lived a lot of life, I've got a lot of wisdom and things like that to share. And I used to give unsolicited advice quite a lot. So I'd be like, you need to do this, or I think you should do that. And just kind of overstepping a little bit of a mark. And I feel like that is where we as natural coaches and leaders and mentors have to really read the situation in the room, because, you know, really and truly, if people are going to pay for your advice, one, why are you going to give it for free? But two, if they haven't asked for it, then they don't want to hear it. And I've had to learn that the hard way. And that was definitely part of my toxic masculine kind of energy and like arrogance and ego. That was all part of that package. And now I actually ask people, like when they tell me about a situation, I'm like, do you want my advice, or do you just want someone to listen? And I think that is a really nice space. That's really how I navigate that now, because if someone doesn't want my advice and they just want to, you know, vent or whatever, like that, I'm equally a human being and I want to support my friends and family, but that doesn't have to always be me giving advice. And I think sometimes we hold our worth on that fact that we are wise and we can give this advice, but we don't always need to show up as that person. So I think it is that for me is a little nugget of like gold that's really working for me now. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it just falls out of my mouth, the advice, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I'll just try and put that back in. Or I'll be like, you're welcome, that would cost you this much normally. But, you know, generally I try my best to ask, because sometimes it is a little bit of a boundary game as well, you know, like for our own boundaries, but also for other people's, that sometimes they're not ready to hear what we have to say, especially if they're not paying the money to seek advice, you know?
I was just wondering, this I love a lot, and it's something I've been trying to implement on my own journey as well. But I still find myself being this person, you know, who always thinks about a solution or asking questions, or who always, for example, I don't have to give the advice, but I always feel like trying to uncover, you know, what's behind the behavior. So I always get into this sort of how to say, investigative.
Yeah, but that's fine though. I mean, asking questions is a beautiful thing. I think you know, there's so much I guess probably a weight on like asking questions are too personal or whatever, but I love people asking questions. You know, being a person of color, and you know, maybe yourself, you might find the same thing where people instead of just assuming where you're from, they're like, tell me about where you're from, like I'd love to hear about it, I'd love to know, or can I refer to you as this, or can you tell me how to pronounce your name? Like for me, that's like beautiful conversation, because you're asking me, you want to know, do you know what I mean, rather than just assuming. So I think asking questions is a lovely thing. So yeah, I don't think that's ever too much, unless you're like, so what are you doing with the rest of your life, because that is obviously a step too far.
Yeah, I was just wondering in this specific case, yeah, what when in it's your instinct to go that way, and then some people might just not want to hear it. They don't want to question their beliefs. They are just the way they are. And yeah, I was curious lately if I am the one that should adjust the situation, or if
you should just get new friends. I'm joking.
That just crossed my mind, but I didn't say it out loud.
Oh no, I just say what I think, really. I'm that person. But no, I think it's a bit of both, really, to be honest. I think judging the time and space. Like if you're having a beautiful dinner with a friend and it's just you and them, then that's a nice space to do it. But if you're in a room full of like 200 people and you're just going around asking everyone, are you aware that you do that? Is that something you do? Are you aware? Do you know that? Or does that help you? Is that, then that's a step too far. So I think it's just reading the room. And personally, I feel like this is something I've developed a lot more now, but moving from intuition and knowing when the right time to say something is, and I think that comes with knowing yourself really well, and the self-work thing, because if you wouldn't ask yourself that question, if you wouldn't be happy to answer it, then why are you asking it? That's also part of it as well. It's just, but I'm very transparent, and I would say real, like I'm just straight up, like everything is what you see is what you get. I think that's why when I do ask a question, if it is a bit invasive or slightly a bit deeper than what people are willing to go, because I'm able to share my own experience and be really raw, they can see that I'm not asking that to get a one-up or anything like that. It's generally because I care and I've come from a similar place or background, So I think, as long as your intentions are pure always, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I love that. In the end, it all comes to knowing how to adapt yourself to each situation. Because, of course, if this is what we live and breathe, right? Like self-development, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and so on, then for us, it's our, how to say, our food. Like this is what it's normal. But I'm also aware that, there are people for which this is not part of their daily lives, or they're not even thinking about these things. And me coming with such an open attitude and just being who I am, that can be uncomfortable for them. As you said, it's all about knowing yourself and trying to open your mind and heart to others, to see them for who you are, not for whom you think they are, and just adapting to that. I think that's the way to go about it. Okay, now I want to go a bit back, because you were mentioning core practices that you do when it comes to self-love. And if I'm not mistaken, is journaling, would you call that a core practice?
100%. Like so much so that I've actually developed my own journal now that I'm selling, that's going to be covering all of this stuff. But I've always journaled my whole life, and I didn't realise. So even from, I think I was about maybe 10 or 11, and my auntie, she's really spiritual, and she took me to this like beautiful store, and she lived in the countryside, so I had this like little fairy shops, and it was really spiritual. And she was like, pick a book, and she was like, you can start writing like diary entries in it. And I was like, okay. So I did that from like 10 all the way up until now. So the diary version is obviously the maybe the childlike version of this, but as I got older, I kind of was, then I stopped for a while, and then I went back to it. Probably about 23, I went back to it. And it's been life-changing, like to be able to like reflect back on your day, or like question things and like why you think that way, like all of this stuff. It's just really deep dive work, and it's got deeper obviously through the pandemic. I really did like unpack and unlearn a lot of things that have been taught to me systemically, obviously from society, but also like family narratives, and also the things that I'd been telling myself my whole life, like this idea of not being good enough, or not pretty enough, or not the right skin tone. A lot of that has been things that I've carried myself that were outdated. So the journaling part has been like the real deep self-awareness work. But as an additive to that, meditation has just changed my life. Like, to the point now where I have to meditate twice a day. And like, people are like, that's crazy. But honestly, before I was meditating twice a day, I was really erratic. Like, I just was quick temper, angry a lot. And like, I know people find meditation really hard, but my easiest thing to be would be to just find 5 minutes in the day. It doesn't need to be long. And it's literally just the basic one is 4 breaths in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and you keep repeating that, and it almost makes a box, so call it a box breath. But yeah, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and you just keep repeating that cycle. And even if you just did that for like 1 minute, or like 8 lots of that, it's just going to give you a bit of a calmness and a little bit more grounding. And I think that's really what it is, because especially coaching and living, being self-employed and all this stuff, as well as being a dancer, there's a lot of tabs open in my brain at a lot of times. So when I get that clear mind, I can then move forward from a really grounded space, but also more clarity. And don't get me wrong, like we said at the beginning of the call, you know, that we're both feeling a little bit tired today and stuff. We're human. It's not going to be perfect every time. But if there's little things you can do to help you with that, then that just makes that so much easier. So yeah, journaling, meditation, obviously being a dancer, physical activity. And it's so underrated, physical activity. I mean, you don't need to go in the gym and pump loads of iron. I mean, I love going to the gym, pumping loads of iron personally, but finding whatever works for you, walking, swimming, cycling, even getting out just in nature and just going for a walk in a field somewhere. And, you know, if you want to be really hippie about it, you can take your shoes off and walk on the grass, you know, like connect to nature, all of this stuff. Because I think on a very, like, this is quite spiritual, but I just feel like we are all connected. Do you know what I mean? Like everything, every part of this whole world is connected, and that goes for people, to living things, to the ground, to everything. And I think if we can connect back to that, we just, you know, anytime when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's just remembering that you're like one tiny dot in this whole universe, but we all work together as one network. And I think that's such an important, valuable part of information, because I think often we get caught up in the I, like in the I'm going through all of this, or I'm struggling with that, or I'm this. But actually, you know, what I found the powerful thing about communicating as well with people, like, and dance has been a lovely part of that, because I've got lots of different friendship groups for that, is that release and that connecting to people and just sharing your experience, you know, like even if it's online, whatever it is, whatever works for you, seeing a friend, you know, that venting process, which actually comes through journaling, you're venting on your own basically. But when you've got friends to share that with as well, it's just, remind you that you're part of something so much bigger than what you are. And on a very base level, my understanding is that humans just want to feel seen and heard. So, you know, if you can always feel seen and heard, and you can allow others to feel seen and heard, you just create beautiful connections. And I think that's what life's about, you know, in every form. So, yeah.
For those who are not watching the video version, I just made a heart, because that really touched me. And I completely agree with you. And I think it's about that. And it's about that connection. And also, again, going back to that, it's about knowing yourself. You're talking about all of these different physical activities that we can do. So it's all about discovering what works for you.
100% that's the key point to it. Again, coming back to the you are unique situation, you know, like we're all so different, but, you know, all connected in equal ways. So yeah, I completely 100%, I say that all the time.
Now, just before we move on, I wanted you to tell us some tips on journaling. You said you've been doing this for a long time. You say you even created your own journal to sell, which I encourage the audience to check it out. What are you journaling about? What are some key things that we should know when it comes to journaling?
I think on a very, very basic level, it's like, if you're new to journaling and it's something brand new, I would go through your day. So just be like, start with how you felt today. So for example, I might write the day, and then I'll just put, today was a really good day. Felt really like grounded. I felt really productive. And yeah, you could just go on to unpack your feelings. Please talk about your feelings in your journal. If you can't talk about it to people, talking about it to your journal is the most like beautiful, wonderful thing. And then I would go through unpacking like what happened in the day. So you could start with, you don't even have to be as explicit at having breakfast, because obviously that's something minute. But if you are someone that struggles with eating, talking about food, amazing, keep doing it. So it's all about individual really. But maybe even going through like what went well today, what wasn't so well, what you could have done differently perhaps, and then what your plans are for the next day. So something very, very surface like that. Just setting yourself some bullet points like to check in with, even like things like scale of 1 to 10, like how you're feeling. Today was a 10, today was an 8, little things like that. Now, I don't overly evaluate those kinds of things, but I think it's a nice start, to just get you to think about it. And then even like unpacking conversations. So for example, like if you had a bit of a row with your boyfriend or something like that, you could just be like, he said this, I said that, and then just really work through it and be like, was that coming from a place of insecurity? Was that coming from a place of anger? Did I overreact? And then you'll probably find a really nice solution in that as well. Because, on a ground level of everything we have all the answers. And, the real deep thing is that other people are a mirror of who we are. So if you're finding flaws in people, it's often the flaws that you have in yourself. So that's really a nice thing to highlight in journaling, because again, it's a space for you to unpack. No one has to read it. No one has to see it. It's not something for show. It is something purely just for you. So I think that's all really the most important thing. And what I love as well about journaling is at the start of every month now, I'm really into astrology and just connecting with moon cycles and things like that. So if that's something that you do like to do, just find out when there's a new moon and a full moon. And the new moon and the full moon, you've set intentions for like what you want to achieve. Now that's going to be twice a month. So it's quite a nice way to just like kind of have a loose plan of what you want your month to look like, or the next 6 months, or whatever it is, especially if it's your birthday or like your moon sign or whatever. It's really going to be a deeper connection there. And then you can start to, just have like a beautiful way of like manifesting without even realizing the things that you want, and maybe even how you'd like to achieve that. And again, maybe it's just like a little bit, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, whatever, it's just sending that out. And we speak things into existence. So talking more about the things you want, it's just going to bring more of that in. And then the things that you don't want, is that how can we change that? What can we do to enable us to remove that from our life, or let go of that? And that let go is probably the most important word, because I feel like we hold on so much to resentment, anger, pain. Like it's a bit like that thing about, if you want to, having an anger at someone is like holding a hot rock. It's only us that's getting burnt. So it's like, can you let go of that rock? Like, how can you get rid of that? And that's why meditation ties in so beautifully, because there's lots of, if you're new to meditation as well, Spotify, YouTube, there's lots of things you can just type in, letting go meditation, or manifestation meditation. This is why all of this is connected. And then doing physical activity on top of that is just releasing those feelings and those emotions and those pent up bits of anger, but also enabling your endorphins to come through and your dopamine to hit, and then just feeling good, and then this is how then we can connect to people. Because once you've, say for example, you get up in the morning, you do your journaling, have a meditation, go and do gym or walk or whatever it is, and then you go meet a friend for coffee, that is a beautiful day. You've had everything you need in one day, right? And good food, good conversation, good chat. It's just that amplification of who you are, and just spreading out far and wide. And I mean, obviously that's just an example of a very base level. When you dive in deep, it does get more painful. And I'm not going to lie, you almost have to, if you're ready to really unpack and find who you are on a really core level, you have to keep diving. Like, why do I think that way? Why am I feeling that way? If you're jealous, if you're angry, if you're upset, they're all the reasons why you should be journaling. Because 9 times out of 10, it comes down to like inner child work. Like maybe, for example, your friend gets a boyfriend and you've been single a long time, for example, and you're feeling like, oh, well, why does she get a boyfriend and I don't? And then you have to unpack it. And then it's like, do you have a fear of opening up? Are you afraid to love? Are you afraid of being hurt? Are you afraid of getting your heart broken? And you might find down the line that there was a boyfriend you had when you were 10 that told you that he wanted to go out with someone else and not you. And then you find that there's like these connections, and it really can be that deep, but it doesn't have to be to start off with. But you'll find that if you really do want a clear, open and easy life, you do have to dive in at some point. And it is uncomfortable, and lots of things will come up that you probably didn't expect. But if we can continue to keep doing that every time something does come up, we're just like unrooting. And it's a bit like, if you want something different in your life, if you want to create something new, it's a bit like taking a plant So say flour, for example, you'd have to get rid of the old soil. And the old soil is like the old toxic behaviours, the old patterns and all of the old outdated things. You'd have to reroot all of that soil, dig up all the old weeds and then get some new fertiliser or whatever, so the soil is nice and ready for that seed to be planted in. Because then once that soil is all fresh and new, that little seed is going to bloom so much more beautiful and brighter and not be tarnished by the old patterns and behaviors, because it's just got beautiful energy to thrive from. And it does take a lot of work, but I think for that true real happiness and that authentic love, like for yourself, you've got to do it. You have got to do it, and there'll come a time where you'll be ready. And it is hard, and it's continuous. At every level of your life you're going to have to go through some element of that, but that's where the growth is, and that's where the real beauty is of life. Because if you continue living on a very mundane pattern, you'll never really feel like the abundance and joy that life can really offer. And I feel like for me, my lows have been so low that my highs are just extraordinary. And now living in a space where I finally feel like all the doors are open for me in my life, I would love everyone to just be in this space, because I feel like this vibration is just so magnificent and wonderful. And I do want to just share it with everyone, because I felt the depths of despair and the pit of like rock bottom. So to now feel like I'm just floating is just lovely. And like I'm floating in a really beautiful way that's like maybe floating, maybe flying, like it's just in a really lovely space. And I just want to promote more of that, really, because I think a lot of people think it is selfish to be like, have strong boundaries and to love yourself fully. And I think that's something that I really want to undo, because that's a societal narrative that's old fashioned. Like we should all live from this space of respecting ourselves fully, because then we're going to respect everyone else more, and we're going to respect other people's time. Like my friends that have really strong boundaries, we have such a beautiful relationship, because we know that, for example, my phone logs me out at 11 p.m. and then when I wake up in the morning, I don't go straight onto my phone. So the friends that know that I'm not going to respond until about 10, 11 o'clock, we have such a beautiful connection. The ones that message me at 8 a.m. and expect a response, they're the ones I have issues with. I'm like, you're not respecting my boundary there. But yeah, it's give and take, obviously. And I don't love them any less for overstepping the mark. We're human. But at the same time, true, real respect is given and earned from the space of receiving and giving on the same level, really. So I feel like I've gone off on a bit of tangent then, but hopefully you get my drift.
No, I loved it, and I'm gonna tell you, I think my cheeks and mouth will hurt because I was smiling all the way while you were talking, because it's real and I feel it. Now, the last question that I would like to ask you, when it comes to our conversation today, what are some final tips that we can leave our coaches with? Anything that comes to your mind, anything that we didn't discuss, anything they can apply for themselves or for
Absolutely.
their
Number one is boundaries. So know and set your boundaries. So go through and just have a little think about, is there do you feel like your clients overstep your boundaries? Do you feel like you don't give yourself enough time, like the self-love thing? Are you putting in enough practices for that? That is all tied into boundaries. And if there isn't, or if there's things that need to change, start implementing them. Don't get me wrong, it will make people uncomfortable. Like your clients might not like that you don't reply after 10 p.m. or whatever, but it's a respect thing. People are paying you money, but that goes for them too. They need to have their boundaries. And I personally, this is in my journal, I'd make a list of the negotiables and non-negotiables. So the things that you're okay with. So for example, if you have a client that is in need of extra care and you don't mind them messaging you, maybe make a list of those people and a list of the ones that are not. It's kind of like priorities, make a list of your priorities and a list of things that, aren't as much of a priority, and then you say no, or you push that back a little bit. You have to be clear on your boundaries. And then, yes, implementing the self-love thing, like making sure, for me, for example, it's very, very basic, but I always make sure I have a bath on a Sunday. Now, that may seem very, very easy and light for people. Some people have baths every day. I've been a person that's had a shower my whole life. because it's just quick and I wasn't giving myself enough time. So now on a Sunday, I make sure I read in the morning, and I read all the time. I read 3 books at a time. I am psychotic, I know. But I will make sure that I read in the morning on a Sunday, have a really slow day, have a nice bath, chill, relax, and that is my time. So if I don't get that on a Sunday, I have to program it in for another day of the week, because that is my time for me. But it's your version of that. So whatever that looks like for you. And stillness. Just really, really try to find stillness in any moment you can. Like I said, even if it's just a couple of times a day, you just stop, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. You make yourself a drink. I mean, for me, I'm a tea fan. I like a hot drink just in general, even a coffee. And I make sure in my day I have that programmed in. Stop what I'm doing completely, whatever it is, and I just connect back to my breath again. And it's really important, that part, because I'm probably going to say his name wrong. I think it's Johan Hari. He's got a book called Stolen Focus, and he basically speaks about how with the internet and everything like that, our focus, we can't focus on more than one thing. So I think an average adult, especially in an office setting, only has 30 seconds at a time of undisturbed focus. So you feel like your brain's constantly running at 100,000 miles an hour. You need to ground back in, be centered. So yeah, love yourself. Center back in, make yourself a priority, and set those boundaries, because you absolutely are deserving and worthy of the life that you want. And I think we just get so caught up in the otherness, in the haze, and in the chaos of life, that when you step back or you step forward into wherever you want to be, and you create that nice boundary of you, there's clear air around here. It's like a breath of fresh air, and it's if you can find that in every day, then you're just going to live a just happy and more fulfilled life, and more centered. I think that's what we all could do with being. And yeah, again, when your cup's full, you're going to pour out all this beautiful liquid gold onto the world and your clients, and just amplify.
Again, cannot stop smiling. This was great. These tips were really great, and honestly, I'm gonna take those for myself. So since we're just mentioning, can you tell us who can reach out to you? What programs do you have right now going? Or
so I have a website, so it's just my name, so SherisseBisram.com. So you can contact me via my website. Instagram is just at Sherisse_Bisram. I now have TikTok. I haven't used it yet, but I will be using it. And it's exactly the same, at Sherisse_Bisram. And now on here as well, I've created a platform. So people can contact me.
Yeah, and you can find, I guess, more about Sherisse there, and her links to the socials, so you can just access her Pensite profile, and from there you can go wherever you want to go. Now, I would like, just before we end, to surprise you with some fun
I'm scared, but let's go.
Are you ready? Let's go. Question 1. If anything, what would you change if you were to start your journey again? I had a feeling you're going to say that.
I just feel like everything I went through really shaped me into the person I am now. And it's like I said, it's like alchemy. It's funny, I had this conversation the other day. It's like a rock, like when it's under constant pressure, becomes a diamond. And I feel like I've actually finally become a diamond, and I'm able to shine now because of the amount of pressure I went through.
We see your light, Sherisse. We see your light. Question 2. What's one belief that you have changed recently?
That I'm hard to love.
Okay, that's a big one, and I'm happy you are able to change that bit by bit, step by step. Question 3. Who are you most grateful for?
I'm grateful for so many people. I cannot tell you. My whole family, we've been through so much. And yeah, the most probably my mum, because she just went through so much and she still remains soft. And I feel like that was the most beautiful thing in my life, because I became hard from the things that I went through, and my mum just continued to be soft. And at times she was too soft, and it angered me, but actually her softness has always been like a blanket of love, always, even at times where it was difficult. She was able to be that person. But I'm just grateful for everyone I connect with, always, because I think I just believe everything happens for a reason, and I think that we all connect and intertwine exactly at the right time for the right reasons. Even to be grateful to come on this platform and connect with whoever's listening, I hope that whatever I've said and shared today, like giving people hope and, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, like I'm here to amplify and raise the vibration and help people. So yeah, just my heart is constantly grateful.
That's exactly what we're doing, and we are very, very grateful for it. Question 4.
I have got a million books everyone should read. Gosh, What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey. That's a really good one. Seat of the Soul, Gary Zukav. The Four Agreements, that's Don Miguel Ruiz. Deepak Chopra, Everything. The Rise, that was Dr. Sarah Lewis. Burnout, that was Emily and Amelia Nawazaki, I think that's her name. Yeah, there's just loads. I could give you a whole list. I could write you a whole podcast about books.
And I think you should do that. But let me tell you, I think you were, you know, like some of the names you said, I haven't heard them before. And it's always so good to hear new book recommendations, because I have a feeling there is this trend with the similar books going around. And I love what I hear.
Brene Brown as well. She's an incredible one.
Gotcha. Okay, last question. One message on a billboard for most people to see. What
is what I say. You are the only you there is, and that's your superpower. That is just how I live my life now. That's just everything I do and say at the end of everything. And you know what I say as well at the end of all of my talks? This is exactly what I say. I say there is a light inside every single one of us. And when we can tap into that light and amplify it and glow to our fullest potential, we allow and give other people the permission to do the same. And when we shine that light out, you know, we amplify. When we all just glow to our fullest, and like how much of a beautiful world would that be if we're all just glowing in our own divine energy and power and beauty, you know? So yeah, that's what I say, you know, is embracing it, all of us, flaws and all, and just celebrating who we are.
Well, this episode has been amazing, and I honestly cannot wait to be able to share this with my friends and my network, because, you know, there is so much value, so much love, so much light in what you shared with us today. And I want to thank you very much, Sherisse, for today, to thank our audience for sticking with us.
I really appreciate the fact that, you know, it's been so rewarding, and, you know, I hope that if anyone takes away from this episode, it's just like, make more time for you. You know, you are the most important person in your life. And we get so caught up in like everyone else around us. And even parents, I know your children are your most important thing, and I absolutely agree with you. But if you are not, you know, living your life to your fullest potential, that is having a knock-on effect. And you are the example of how everyone else knows to treat you. So if you treat yourself with the most love and respect, everyone else will do the same, and in turn treat themselves the same, you know. So you're the most important person in the whole universe, and I hope that you take that away and celebrate that and love that. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. I feel really grateful to be able to share my knowledge and my life with everyone that listens. So thank you.
Thank you. Wishing you all an amazing day, and see you for the next episode. Have a good one. Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.